So yesterday, President Trump threatened military action if the killing of Christians in Nigeria didn't stop, to which the Nigerian government responded, that'd be great. Actually, we could really use some help dealing with these jihadi groups. And I'm not sure that's the response President Trump was looking for. The way I read it, and we'll go into it here in a second, it looked like more of a threat than an offer to help. A lot of confusion here, unnecessarily. For one, the bad guys in this situation, the ones killing civilians, is Boko Haram. It's not the legitimate Nigerian government. The government is having a hard time, I would say failing at beating back Boko Haram, no doubt about that. The terrorist organization is the one here massacring civilians. This is the group back in 2014 that took all those poor girls hostage. This also is not uniquely Christian targeted for whatever reason. We've got an idea of where that came from, but just looking at some data here over the last couple of years, ACLED, the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Program, shows that there were 20,409 deaths in Nigeria due to armed conflict over the course of the last 5 years. 317 of those where Christian identity of the victim was a reported factor. So 317 out of 20,409, they say that 417 deaths during that time period were because their Muslim identity was a factor. So look, it's a lot of civilians being killed at the hands of this awful terrorist organization, and the world would be a better place if Boko Haram was not here. For whatever reason, though, we are framing this like a campaign to wipe out Christianity, and I'm not sure that really lines up with the facts on the ground or the ideology of Islamic State writ large. They hate everybody. Remember, this is a group that in Afghanistan is fighting the Taliban because they're not pious enough. They have taken up arms against Al-Qaeda because they view them as not religious enough to their ideology. So Islamic State, best way to think of them is they hate everyone that is not them. Christians are a part of that, but so in Nigeria are Muslims and people of any other faith. Now, President Trump's statement yesterday said, quote, if the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the U.S. will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria and may very well go into that now disgraced country guns a-blazing to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. I am hereby instructing our Department of War to prepare for possible action. If we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet, just like the terrorist thugs attack our cherished Christians. Warning, the Nigerian government better move fast. Now, a quick note, Nigeria is not effectively dealing with Boko Haram right now. A few years ago, it was an election, I want to say 5 or 7 years ago, one of the government leaders that lost accused the opposition of being in bed with Boko Haram as just like a slanderous attack to throw at your political opponents. There was no evidence of that at the time or now. That has kind of taken hold to where some people at times will be like, well, the Nigerian government is Boko Haram. Those are conflicting ideologies. They cannot exist together. Again, it's one of the reasons that Islamic State Khorasan province is fighting the Taliban. All right, so Boko Haram cannot exist alongside or inside of another government. It's not how that comes together. Whereas a group like Al-Qaeda can. By the way, when you look at the ideologies, that's where some of the breakdown occurs and why you have some Al-Qaeda leaders serving in the Taliban government. You do not have Islamic State leaders serving in the governments of any countries. It doesn't work that way. Now, a quick note there when it comes to the stopping of aid. The Nigerian government is having a hard time clamping down on this terrorist group. If we stop all aid, and no doubt we could look at this and find out if it's maybe not being used as effectively as possible, or maybe we should ramp up military assistance or advising in some capacity. I mean, for what it's worth, we are already pretty active in Africa. I feel like this is really flying under the radar, but in the month of October, we carried out 8 lethal strikes, the most so far this year in Somalia. So, big continent, we do have a fair number of assets in that region, and if needed, could ramp up direct military assistance. Removing assistance right now would give Boko Haram even more free rein. And this is certainly this is not 2 or 3 airstrikes from being resolved, right? This is an insurgent terrorist organization spread throughout the country. So Al Jazeera actually put out a note here talking about the response from Nigeria, where they said Nigeria said it would welcome assistance from the United States in fighting armed groups as long as its territorial integrity is respected, after U.S. President Trump threatened military action in the West African country over what he claimed was the persecution of Christians there. A spokesperson for the Nigerian president told Reuters on Sunday that the country would welcome U.S. assistance so long as it recognizes our sovereignty. A bunch of responses here from the U.S. government that made this even more confusing, in my personal opinion, than it needed to be. Again, Boko Haram is a bad group. They have been a bad group for a long time. If we want to put together a more robust coalition or a more significant arms package and go after and eliminate one of the branches of Islamic State, I'm here for it. I think that's a good thing. That would be a good use of our resources. But for whatever reason, we're framing this entirely different right now as like a defensive Christianity. Secretary Hegseth, responding to President Trump, said, quote, "Yes, sir. The killing of innocent Christians in Nigeria and anywhere must end immediately. The Department of War is preparing for action. Either the Nigerian government protects Christians or we will kill the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities." The Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, said, quote, "Thank you, President Trump, for taking action and bringing attention to this mass slaughter and violence being carried out against innocent Nigerians simply because they are Christian. These murderers are driven by the same radical Islamic ideology that fuels jihadi terrorists who continue to threaten our safety, security, and our freedom." Look, to be blunt, the only thing that is unique about what's happening in Nigeria versus a bunch of other areas where Islamic State is active, including in Africa, is that some of the people that they are killing are Christians. Like this same love, Nigeria is not top of the list when it comes to Islamic State violence right now, or even terrorism. Like there's a lot of places suffering from this. The unique aspect here is that some of the Nigerians, I should mention, right, these aren't Americans, some of the Nigerians being killed in this aspect are Christians. In turn, that seems to be why it's getting increased focus from President Trump. This does appear to have really gained some steam early in October, where Senator Ted Cruz said, quote, "Officials in Nigeria are ignoring and even facilitating the mass murder of Christians by Islamic jihadists. It's time to hold those responsible accountable." And then over the course of the last couple of weeks, Laura Loomer, a social media influencer, podcaster with a lot of sway inside the Trump administration, has been hammering the drum even more that we need to do something about Nigeria because of the persecution of the Christians there. Now, the Council on Foreign Relations had a piece talking about all this following Senator Cruz's statement where they said, quote, "Can an insurgency be described as religious when to all intents and purposes and to various official spokespersons, and not a few analysts have pointed out, its victims are Christians, Muslims, and everyone in between? Put differently, if Boko Haram has it in for Christians only, why do they keep killing Muslims?" And they do. Again, they're killing everybody. Now, I think the reason that this is, again, the reason that we're focused here is because the Christian aspect, but that would make this unique in how we've handled counterterrorism operations around the world, at least in my lifetime, from what I know. Now, the Associated Press, following up on Senator Cruz's statement, said, quote, "Cruz has been trying to rally fellow evangelical Christians and urge Congress to designate Nigeria as a violator of religious freedom with unfounded claims of Christian mass murder, which the government of the West African nation has vehemently rejected as false. Nigeria's 220 million strong population is split almost equally between Christians and Muslims. The country has long faced insecurity from various fronts, including the Boko Haram extremist group, which seeks to establish its radical interpretation of Islamic law and has also targeted Muslims it does not deem Muslim enough. Attacks in Nigeria have various motives. They are religiously motivated ones targeting both Christians and Muslims, clashes between farmers and herders over dwindling resources, communal rivalries, secessionist groups, and ethnic clashes. While Christians are among those targeted, analysts say the majority of victims of armed groups are Muslim in Nigeria's Muslim-majority north, where most attacks occur. While religion has been a factor in Nigeria's security crisis, they're quoting here Lad Surwat, a senior African analyst at ACLED, quote, "Large population and vast geographic differences make it impossible to speak of religious violence as motivating all of the violence." Turning over to Newsweek, where we get some of the pushback here saying, no, there is a Christian genocide taking place. I'm going to butcher the name here. Emeka Umagasi, the founder of a local international society for civil liberties and rule of law, said, quote, "If nothing is done in the next few years, Christianity will cease to exist in Nigeria." They note that there are conflicting statistics about how many Christians have died and how many have died as a result of their faith, making it difficult to say for sure. But international Christian advocacy group Open Doors lists Nigeria as the 7th most dangerous place for Christians in its World Watch list, and says more Christians are killed for their faith in Nigeria than in the rest of the world combined. The Nigerian government challenged this by saying, quote, portraying Nigeria's security challenges as a targeted campaign against a single religious group is a gross misinterpretation of reality, arguing that Christians are some of the many people across all religions falling victim to terrorists operating in the country. Al Jazeera had a piece pushing back on this as well, saying, quote, we have Balama Bakardi, a Nigerian humanitarian lawyer and analyst on conflict and development, said, quote, all of the data reveals that there is no Christian genocide going on in Nigeria. This is a dangerous far-right narrative that has been simmering for a long time that President Trump is amplifying today. It is divisive, and it's only going to further increase instability in Nigeria, going on to explain that armed groups in Nigeria have been targeting both Muslims and Christians. Quote, they bomb markets, they bomb churches, they bomb mosques, and they attack every civilian location they find. They do not discriminate between Muslims and Christians. So, again, Boko Haram, bad. I would like it if we woke up tomorrow and Boko Haram did not exist. All of them, killed and captured. Nigeria would be in a better place. West Africa would be in a better place. The United States would be in a better place. So if we have an operation or a campaign to go about eradicating that cancer, go for it. It's weird, to be blunt, that we jumped on this all of a sudden and label it as defending Christianity is probably the simplest way to put it. That's unusual. But either way, given the fact that Nigeria has said we would love your help, we will see if we actually end up with, if we have boots on the ground, it's going to be more in an advisory capacity. I know a lot of news outlets yesterday jumped on invasion of Nigeria. That's not going to be a thing. We might increase or stand up a military presence on the ground. My understanding is we no longer have boots on the ground there, even in advising capacity. But we certainly could put some special operations forces there to assist with the targeting and offensive capacities against Boko Haram, maybe even some conventional forces in training some of the Nigerian military. And then, of course, ISR assets overhead helping to track Boko Haram, identify and disrupt those networks, and then air capacity to carry out lethal strikes once they are located. So there's a lot of things we could do. We'll see now if we end up going down that path. But either way, out of nowhere, Nigeria, all of a sudden on the map. That's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.